Welcome, everyone, to the United Lodge of Theosophists here in San Diego. The speaker has asked me to read a few paragraph from a passage that she has selected from Plotinus, and I will read it to you. It's in this computer. Real being. Before we had our becoming here, we existed. There, men other than now, some of us gods. We were pure souls, spirit inbound with the entire of reality, members of the spiritual, not fenced off, not cut away, integral to that all. Even now it is true. We are not put apart, but upon that primal man there has intruded another. This other has wound himself about us, foisting himself upon the man that each of us was at first. Then it was as if one voice sounded, one word was uttered, and from every side an ear attended and received. There was an effective hearing, possessed through and through of what was present and active upon it. Now we have lost that first simplicity. We have become the dual thing. To real being, if we go back. All that we have and are, to that we return, as from that we came. Of what is, there we have direct knowledge, not images or even impressions. And to know without image is to be. By our part in true knowledge, we are those beings. We do not need to bring them down into ourselves, for we are there among them. Since not only ourselves, but all other things also are those beings, we all are they. We are they, while we are also one with all. Therefore, we, in all things, are one. I give you Monica Page, Jnana Yoga.
Om Saraswati Vidmahe Brahma Putre Dhimahi Tanno Saraswati Prachodayata. Om Saraswati Vidmahe Brahma Putre Dhimahi Tanno Saraswati Prachodayata. Beloved goddess of knowledge and wisdom and creativity and art, O wife of Brahma, we honor you. Hi, everybody. So great to be with us. Yoga, meaning at one with, alignment, union with higher self, the real and true aspect of ourselves, the all in all. Now, there are probably, we're all aware of the 4 basic types of yoga practice. And given that everybody is on this obligatory journey, as stated in the proem of The Secret Doctrine, it could be said that many a human being is on one or more of these paths, consciously, unconsciously, racking up opportunities for correction and increasing wakefulness, treading the wheel of rebirth and of suffering. But good news, it seems, is that we are able to pursue and tread these paths quite consciously. We can attain their purpose in varying degrees. And however many times we may have to come back, it will be increasingly for the purpose not of suffering due to ignorance, but for the purpose of helping mankind, though that often takes on the form of suffering with mankind. So, general overview, there's Raja Yoga, considered the synthesis of the four, sometimes called royal yoga, in that it's all about becoming master of the domain. And of course, the domain here is our mind. Not only knowledge of the lower mind's natural tendencies, but also the training and willful control of it, thereby making it available to higher mind, higher self, accomplishing one-pointedness, concentration, building the bridge between lower and higher mind, what's called the antakarana. Now, until that great point of evolution, when the bridge is no longer needed, because what's lower has indeed, at some wonderful point, become blended with the higher. So this particular path has to do with techniques and mantras, the development of cities, powers, and it's important because without them, the natural tendencies of the lower mind consistently obscure our goal. The goal of which is that perception, that connection with our real identity, the all in all. Bhakti Yoga, the path of heart, divine love and devotion, a love that may well begin with friends, family, community, teacher, the Sadguru, the master. But this path of love and devotion is said to lead us to universal love as identity, the overarching impersonal love and compassion for the highest good of all. Karma Yoga, the path of action, performing works and service in the world on behalf of the highest good of all. Mr. Judge says, acting for and as the self of all. And Jnana Yoga, our focus this evening, the path of using the mind and the intellect for the study of scripture, spiritual truths, to attain knowledge and discernment. Now, it seems important to remain cognizant of two things. One, there really is only one path, which is the consistent, noble tread of truth and goodness. Two, however wonderful it may be to learn about these truths, to incorporate them into our lives, there is also in stages becoming, attaining an increasingly greater perception and reality of that higher portion of ourselves, our true identity, realization. And so these four paths are an enormous boon to man. They give us the opportunity to come to the hard-earned truth that ultimately, beyond all the things we may have mistakenly chosen as our identity, which is part of the journey, we actually are that path. An initiate, an adept, an arhat, a mahatma, these beings in all various degrees, accomplished and stabilized in their transcendent reality of the self. In fact, we can say that with them, self is no more. So 4 ways to get there, and it reminds one of that expression, one mountain in town, many roads. Now, it's true, with loving heart and good intention, people can get a lot done on behalf of others. But in looking at these paths, the question that came up for this student was, can we really be our most effective, free of the many possible pitfalls, without clear and true knowledge and understanding, without wisdom? In fact, without the ancient wisdom? Jnana Yoga seems to offer us a way that can at least lessen whatever possible hazards we may meet along the way, treading this path with spiritual study, right understanding, purification of mind, moral clarity, engaging the intellect to absorb and assimilate truths given out by the great wise ones, the masters, and the great teachers they've given us, Madame Blavatsky, Mr. Judge, Mr. Crosby, Raghavan Iyer, all who've treaded this path innumerable times and cycles before us, the goal of which is not only true knowledge and understanding, but also that of discernment, separating the true from the false. And what seems to be the toughest nut to crack of all, wisdom, that which through time, experience, effort, error, and correction gives us the ability of right application of what we study and come to know to be true. Also, our dharma, our duty here, at least in part, in accomplishing all this, is to raise up matter, to lift and set our focus upward, beyond the physical, beyond matter, and to redirect the desire principle in us upward, giving up the lower mind's tendency toward that which can become quite earthbound for the purpose of becoming realigned with, attuned to that eternal, permanent part of us, higher self, Atma, Buddhi, Manas. And ultimately, maybe not next week, to become anchored in conscious identity of ourselves as the all in all. Jnana Yoga is said to be the most difficult simply because it is the domain of the mind. And more importantly, because it actually uses the mind to go beyond the mind and come to this realization that indeed we are one with that divine. Deepak Chopra on his website speaks of this path, saying that in the Upanishad scriptures, the jnana path is referred to as the razor's edge, because the personal self, the combination of the lower mind, lower manas, and kama, the desire principle within us, the personal ego, is always trying to knock us off, to cut us off from the true and higher perception, deterring us with its insistence on being front and center, cause and solution. So often in the various problems in life, and it's very slick. It's not going to walk up to us and say, hey, just to let you know, I'm the boss here. I'm running the show. So because of the tendencies of the lower mind, and probably many other reasons this struggling student does not yet know, the jnani may find help by engaging in disciplined introspection. One thing we may do is to ask, when you have some kind of ambition or goal or a request or question about something, to first ask within, who is it in me that is asking this? Meaning, is this coming from my heart? Is it coming from a place of service, a place of pride, a place of fear? Is it some sort of intentional deception I don't want to own up to? Getting to the bottom of it for the sake of getting to the top of it. Another might be engaging in the process of analytical meditation in order to acquire discernment, using that Sanskrit phrase, neti, neti, not this, that. The process of gaining a better understanding of the true goal of the path, the all in all, that. Clearing up motive and right identity by coming to the clear understanding of what it is not. Now, it seems keeping in mind the ideas and laws that we find in theosophy, law of cause and effect, the idea of accountability, self-responsibility, the idea of thinking for oneself, arriving at spiritual truth through our own effort, that this may be at least one of the reasons Madame Blavatsky gives us right at the outset the three fundamentals in the secret doctrine as propositions, not as imposing dogma. Clearly, her mission being to free us, or rather, help us to free ourselves from the chains of dogmatism, bias, bigotry, wrong understanding, worldly, exoteric, whatnot. She asks us to hold these three basic ideas firmly in mind as we engage in the study, with the idea that what will unfold for us, not only with the secret doctrine and all the other theosophical writings, but also the writings of other spiritual traditions, many of which she refers to. What will unfold is our own spiritual truth. And that alignment, that yoga we seek will afford us better understanding and more clarity. Now, no matter what other focus we may have in our lives regarding spiritual matters, it's probably safe to say that all of us here are engaged in the path of Jnana Yoga. And that includes anyone who may be here for the first time and in a questioning frame of mind about what all this is. I found online a writer by the name of Helena Astra, who made a distinct statement about Jnana Yoga that made sense to me. And it also called to mind something I'd heard in a theosophical circle. She said, the goal in Jnana is very interesting because the goal is already attained. Since you already are Brahman, ultimate reality, the goal already attained, all you need to do is dispel the ignorant idea that you are not. And this made sense. And of course, I'm going, yeah, right, easy peasy. But it also put me in mind of what I heard somebody say in a theosophical class. And maybe it can be comforting to remember. With all these incredibly large ideas impacting the mind, that within every human being is a full-blown master. And we're all making our way around the evolutionary clock back home to that original state. And the collective one being that we are will have become conscious of itself as a God. And that in turn made me remember the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna in the 10th chapter says, I am the origin of all. All things proceed from me. And later in the same chapter as well, at the beginning of the scripture, his statement, I established this whole universe with a single portion of myself and remain separate. So Jnana Yoga can enable us to widen our scope tremendously, achieve right and better understanding, which in turn can help us to be of better service. In the book of Proverbs, Solomon says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Anything worth accomplishing comes with challenges. In coming to understand the path of study, of knowledge and wisdom, particularly the theosophical writings, so fully packed with powerful information, jnana may at first seem like a huge task to undertake because of its wide scope. But dear William Quan Judge, in his book, The Ocean of Theosophy, gives us right at the outset a clue about this beautiful and inherent balance regarding the true spiritual path. He tells us that theosophy is, quote, unfathomable in its deepest parts. It gives the greatest minds their fullest scope, yet shallow enough at its shores, it will not overwhelm the understanding of a child. Mm. One of the first things this student read, oh, well, okay, I'm in. Robert Bowen, in his booklet, How to Study the Secret Doctrine, expresses a stunning truth, relaying how in spending time with Madame Blavatsky, writing down the communication between them, her thoughts and ideas regarding the secret doctrine, she communicated to him that every form contains the concealed image of that person's work. And that it's also true that an author's work, no matter how obscure, contains the concealed image of that author's knowledge. And so from her saying this, Bowen took it to mean that the secret doctrine must contain all that HBB knows, and even more, given that much of it comes from the masters whose knowledge is so much greater than hers. But the surprising idea, Bowen says, was that he knew that HBB unmistakably relayed to him that someone could find knowledge in the secret doctrine that she herself did not have. And that although one of Bowen's colleagues thought Madame Blavatsky may have been losing her grip, as he put it so bluntly, Bowen knew that, in fact, she was telling them not to anchor themselves to her as final authority, nor to anyone else, but to depend on their own widening perceptions. So this study, Jnana Yoga, with all the ways in which we here describe, is also a path in the development of self-trust, built on study and true intuition and self-responsibility, the fruit of which is responsibility to life in general. And this brings up an important question. Can we believe in our perception of life, what the normal workings of our instrument tells us? According to the teachings, we can. Once we have removed through study, purification, self-inquiry, development of discernment, intuition, and because of this effort, we will in degrees remove the veil of illusion, that of Maya, that's been habitually put before us as we move through life using the lower mind. A great change in perception. In all the seminars and classes this student took on changing your life, becoming enlightened in 3 days or so, there was certainly the idea that, as Gautama Buddha tells us, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. But no one ever made clear to us that the mind, in constantly taking on the form of whatever is before it, unless trained and controlled, will tend to block us from our true self. In the first fragment of the powerful little book, The Voice of the Silence, we're told, the mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciple slay the slayer. And then there's a series of statements that describe the clear signposts along the way that indicate that one has made progress toward the real, which will position us and allow us to hear from within ourselves the voice of voices, the voice of the silence. It definitely seems to speak of this great journey toward union, becoming one with the all in all, the voice of the silence. So we can, over time in the practice of Jnana Yoga, studying, gaining right understanding, putting what we understand into practice, doing our best to be in alignment with the great truths given out to us by the masters and teachers, we can become increasingly anchored in this higher identity. And as we become steady and consistent in this higher view, it could well be that this higher focus on real knowledge, truth, and wisdom will loosen the control of the senses over our perception. And the unreal will be increasingly revealed to us as exactly that, unreal. Mm-hmm. With the higher forces and energies in man and the universe, which are really one, having become our newly habituated go-to. We build the bridge, the antakarana, and even if we haven't progressed to the point where there is no longer need for the bridge, over the span of a lifetime, we will have assimilated all that we've studied, understood, applied. We will be giving to the Buddhic aspect of our nature, the essence of every spiritual truth that we've come to. Everything else falls into the category of you can't take it with you. So, in the fourth chapter of the Gita, entitled Devotion Through Spiritual Knowledge, Lord Krishna tells us about the distinct position that jnana holds among all the disciplines, and in no way does he make less of all the others. He tells Arjuna, in whatever way men approach me, that way do I assist them. He gives some explanation of the others, but further on, he tells Arjuna, even if thou wert the greatest of all sinners, thou shalt be able to cross over all sins in the bark of spiritual knowledge. As the fire, O Arjuna, reduces fuel to ashes, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ashes. There is no purifier in this world to be compared to spiritual knowledge. So, for the sake of becoming in consciousness the all in all, the jnani engages to some degree in self-analysis. Knowledge of the lower for the sake of gaining mastery of it and blending it with the higher, which may not at first be easy to take hold of oneself with complete honesty, looking clearly at oneself, making changes where needed. Clearly, spiritual life demands far more of us than secular life. The great Pythagoras offers us a good way to go in trying to achieve this. He tells us that we should always, at the end of every day, review the day's activities and choices, and do so 3 times before going to sleep at night. He says, quote, never suffer sleep to close thy eyelids after thy going to bed, till thou hast thrice reviewed all the actions of the day. Wherein have I done amiss? What have I done? What have I omitted that I ought to have done? If in this examination thou find that thou hast done amiss, reprimand thyself severely. And if thou hast done any good, rejoice. Practice thoroughly all these things, meditate on them well. Thou oughtest to love them with all thy heart. It is they that will put thee in the way of divine virtue. Again, Madame Blavatsky makes it clear that why it is that we have to engage in this play between the lower and higher mind. She says, higher ego cannot act on the body, as its consciousness belongs to quite another plane, planes of ideation. The lower self does, and its action and behavior depend on its free will and choice as to whether it will gravitate toward its parent, the Father in heaven, or the animal which informs the man of flesh. She says the higher ego, which is part of universal mind, is unconditionally omniscient on its own plane, but only potentially in our terrestrial sphere, as it has to act solely through its alter ego, the personal self. So our work is cut out for us. Robert Bowen's, one more time, How to Study the Secret Doctrine explains something, or rather, Madame Blavatsky explains something of the process that a jnani may experience in studying the secret doctrine or any spiritual writing. She says, Jnana Yoga is the right path for the Western student. And it seems startling at first to read that, given that we're so immersed in language and words, that in this study we're meant to go beyond words. She says theosophical writings are not to be taken as the perfect picture of the universe, but more as a secondary pattern that leads us to that truth which is beyond words. So the teachings give us the opportunity to go beyond form and the exoteric to the esoteric, the occult, hidden reality. She explains that as we progress in this study, Jnana Yoga, concepts are going to arise that may not yet form a mental picture, but over time, they will. And at that time also, we're to be mindful and not think that that picture that comes up represents reality. and that as we progress on, that picture will fade. And also, here is another place of caution she gives us. Supposing that we are then in a void after that picture fades, we may want to cling to the previous picture and recall it again. But she says we should not, and that over time, pictures will appear and fade, and none of them will ever represent the truth. And that we will have, going through this process, transcended the mind and the pictures put before us and enter into the world of no form. And by way of experience, come to the understanding that all forms are merely a narrow reflection of the truth. All this ranging from the simplest act of study to amazing descriptions of sublime experiences are contained in the path of Jnana Yoga. India is a world of remarkable spiritual wealth. Scriptures, great souls, adepts, yogis, masters. This description that HPB gives here of the process of a jnani going through study and application is mirrored by a great spiritual master, a siddha, who a born realized siddha, if I understand this correctly, by the name of Bhagwan Nityananda, who left the earth in 1961. And there are amazing stories about him that swirled about him, quite a mysterious being, stories of how he'd manifest food out of the air to feed the starving children in India. There's no record of his birth. It's said that he simply showed up. But he roamed on foot all over India and was able to give seekers, the important point here, the direct experience of their study, taking them beyond the world of form into that of no form, as HPB expresses. But he expresses the same idea that Madame Blavatsky does, but in a very poetic way. And I'll just briefly give you this. He says, Jnanis have no mind. Jnanis, to them, everything is the same, samatma. To them, there is no state of sleep, dreams, deep sleep, shushupti. They are always asleep. They have no distinction as sun or moon. They are always in the dawn of the rising sun. The lamp does not shine brightly when its glass is covered with soot. Similarly, the soot covering the mind has to be removed. Raghavan Iyer, in his volume 2 of the Gupta Vidya, expresses how a person with a sickly mind is not going to be likely to fathom the idea of exalted beings, of these masters, of gurus. But over a time span, he says, as they become better, they can be aided by archetypal, thinking, giving the example of, say, the animal kingdom, how they naturally look after their young and how that mirrors the bond between mother and child. And he seems to be saying that even here, adopting a more universal mind with someone who's just not totally connected with these teachings or life in general, for that matter, that this archetypal mind that we develop can be helpful to a person as they move toward better mental and physical health. Jnana wisdom, he calls it wisdom sacrifice. So, to end, Swami Vivekananda, in his book Jnana Yoga, which is a compilation of inspiring talks that he gave in London, he takes on a very warlike tone about the path of jnana, much like a call to arms for society. And he seems to be making the effort to cut through the stronghold of materialism, relaying the idea that truth must be fought for. He says, that society is the greatest where the highest truths become practical. That's my opinion. And if society is not fit for the highest truths, make it so. And the sooner the better. Stand up, men and women in this spirit. Dare to believe in the truth. Dare to practice the truth. The world requires a few hundred bold men and women. Practice that boldness, which dares to know the truth, which does not quake before death, which makes a man know that he is the spirit and that in the whole universe, nothing can kill him. Then you will be free. You will know your real soul. This Atman is first to be heard, then thought about, then meditated upon. Fill the brain with high thoughts, highest ideals. Place them day and night before you. And out of that will come great work. Thank you, everybody. Namaste.
Wow, thank you so much, Monica, for that absolutely mesmerizing presentation. I must say, you are quite a storyteller. And I don't know, your storytelling voice comes out, and it's just beautiful.
Thank you so much, Tessa.
What a gift. Um, we had a we'll open it up to questions, but I do have wanted to read the first citation, hermetic citation we have in our Aquarian journal here. Jnana and Jnana point to that enigmatic process of inward knowing, wherein the knower and the known become one, fused in transcendent moments of compassionate revelation. And this idea of fusing the knower with the known. And I think we've talked about, the actor becoming merged with the action.
Mhm.
I think Jean last week mentioned the perceiver merging with the perceived. These are interesting ideas to contemplate because it makes me think of that shedding. We get to the point where we can just shed that Antascarana bridge. Is that what that means? That we've reached a point where we're in such high or close, almost merged proximity to our own selves that that bridge is no longer needed, that the actor and the action do become one. Because it would seem in that case, form must actually, I don't want to say the word dissolve, but and maybe it becomes irrelevant. I don't know. Could you speak to that? The losing of that Antascarana bridge and this notion of the perceived becoming what it's perceiving.
Yes, thank you, Desiree. I think that this is something that I've certainly been struggling with to understand. And so I'm wondering if I do understand it well enough now, but this is what I think it is. And this is what I think it is today. So we have uh, uh, a physical body, a desire body, and a will that we can direct in upward or downward. And depending on our orientation to life, we will go in either direction. So it seems that the more we fill our thought processes with that of the higher self, of higher frequencies, of the more spiritual than the material, at least at the outset, we will have loosened the grand rush of materialism that most of society is engaged in. But then I thought about everything, it seems, in theosophy, it speaks to stages. So there has to be a stage where we're still in this body, but we've lost the attachment to the big mess or the big rush. We've lost that attachment. And so the lower aspect of our being, flooded with the frequency from above, is become spiritualized. And so that's one stage. But then I thought about um, eh, eh, the Nirmanakaya. The Nirmanakaya refuses to go beyond a certain point so that he can be, or she can be, they can be, of help to society. And so there's a point at which, if they go too far beyond this material universe, astral and what are the other planes, they won't be able to help us. So between where they are and where we are now, I would imagine there are plenty of stops along the way that require a certain sacrifice, you know. It just, that's the best way that I could explain it. But I think that we have the opportunity to keep a physical reality and spiritualize it to the point where it isn't burdensome, that it becomes a vehicle to be of service.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's also a question in my mind when you mentioned that all the yanas or the yogas all sort of merge in with Raja Yoga. And I was wondering, is it really, after all, three or four distinct paths? It almost seems like they're all one path in a way, but intertwined in different ways. And almost fittingly with the gunas, because you have one that's based in action, one that's based in this very high spiritual um, love, and you have another that is kind of with its feet on the ground, just trying to get the necessary tools to work with, the raising of the matter, so to speak.
Yes.
I wonder if they are actually threefold with the synthesis of the four.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that is the synthesis of the that the royal yoga or Raja Yoga includes all the others. I think it's a path that is on the road far more quickly to mastery.
Mhm.
And so I for that reason, and then the other logical thought in this mind is, how could you possibly have universal love and not have wisdom? How could you possibly, I mean, maybe on the other side they do, I don't know, but how could you possibly have one without the other at certain levels? That's how I see.
It's almost like you can't really proceed with one to any, high degree without the
But
others just sort of intertwining
yes,
and because
and the
they're
law,
one. They're really
yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
I'm just
Thank you, though. I think uh, uh, Judy had her hand up. Judy?
oh, there we go. I'm just
Yes,
in the
That's
hand.
okay. Thank you, though.
yes. Thank you for
Hi,
a very,
Judy.
hi, Monica. Thank you for a very profound and illuminating talk on Jnana Yoga. And I think it's so important because having spent many years in a university, I did encounter students who had, I guess they had gotten tired of discursive thought. And I can remember someone remarking about the religious studies department at UC Santa Barbara. Oh, this is manas. That's nothing. Or all you need to do is meditate. You don't need to do anything else. Well, obviously, this is not theosophy because in order to understand the secret doctrine, the fundamentals, it's good to have a good education. It doesn't mean it has to be formal university education, but you need a good vocabulary. You need some foundation and mathematics to
Facilities.
understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I didn't
okay.
mean to interrupt. Yes, I hear you
All
fine.
right.
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, I think this needs to be addressed. That there are people who think that it's all meditation, it's all booty, and we can just kill out this business about the manas. I remember the wise Nandini Iyer once said that the manas are so important because the higher mind really is our personal soul connected to the third logos. And we wouldn't have Plato and Plotinus and the Upanishads and the work of the great masters without their ideas coming down into this kind of thought. So I think your thought has and talk has addressed that very well.
Well, I'm
But
grateful.
I,
Thank you.
yeah,
It's definitely we're to give the mind a good workout and to live that way, to function as a person who thinks and also thinks for themselves.
oh yes, well that's my question. How do we connect the jnana so needed in the West because we're so ignorant of the Eastern teachings to the karma and bhakti, which some people find more difficult than jnana,
I,
frankly.
I think that it's we're still suffering from the disease of division and separation, and this is over here and that's over there. And if you are part of an organized religion, then you can't practice yoga. I mean, so it's a difficult thing to, and then and there have been improvements in all fairness in that regard, but it's still a struggle. Our mind is conditioned to function out of this sense of division. Not easy, but we're here. Our thoughts go out.
Yes, and I think that's contemporary education does that. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much,
Nathan?
Nathan.
Okay, hi. Well, thank you for these wonderful questions and comments, so illuminating. And I hope you give this talk again, Monica, because it's really powerful and it bears repeating. So, but what I wanted to say is that an image came to me while I was listening to Monica and Desiree talking about this question of the Antaskarna Bridge. And because Monica was responding, talking about these great beings who stay behind to help us. And I was just reminded of, being a boy and hiking in the mountains and going for long, long hikes with my Boy Scout friends. We go on 20 milers really, and, take a couple days and but everyone moved at a different pace, a certain etiquette on the trail that you wait to make sure there's a point, there's a lead, and then there's somebody who's behind. I forget what you call them.
Yes, and don't leave anybody behind.
Yeah. So that image just really came to me. And then the idea of this Antaskarna bridge, like at what point do we not need it? Well, when we have these beings, they have become the path. That's what they're doing. They're waiting for us. They are guides on the path. They are of the path. And when we become of the path, then that's the Antaskarna bridge. It literally is the path, I think.
Yes,
So.
I totally agree with you. Thank you
so much.
Jeffrey, unmute.
Yes, ma'am. What a wonderful comment, Nathan. I just love that.
Right.
Back to my Boy Scout days too. That was really great. Yeah, I wonder at the end Monica, you quoted Vivekananda, who had a lot of influence on my life. My church, Unity Church, grew out of a speech by Vivekananda, actually. And you said for the highest truth to become practical. And those are really resonant words, but I wonder, could you give me an example of that, and how is that related to the practice of Jnana Yoga, do you think?
Okay, let me make sure I understand the question.
Mhm.
It was about uh, making the highest truth practical, and
Yeah,
how does that relate to Jnana Yoga?
yeah. What does that
Yeah,
mean? I mean, could you give me an example of like in history or in society? Because he was talking about society, like where a high truth becomes practical. And
I
I
think
Mhm.
I mean what comes up for me, Jeffrey, is uh, we can reverse this train of thought maybe about banning books, and not only doing away with banning them, but taking hold of young writers who may want to be connected to spiritual ideas in a way that they sort of get a taste of. I keep thinking, because of the time we're in, of His Holiness Dalai Lama, who says, if every child at the age of 8 is taught meditation, we will erase violence within one generation. So why couldn't it be that we have that as part of a school curriculum along with a study, perhaps written by someone who can simplify some of these basic ideas? Because if a kid likes the feeling of peace, likes reading about it and sharing it with their friends, this can spread like wildfire instead
Mm.
of this well, I won't get into it, I just get upset.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I know you understand what I'm saying. So that's an age group, but I think also
Yeah.
if every religion, I mean, haven't they done this before? Haven't they tried to do this before? Every religion coming together with the focus on certain qualities, whether it be peace or charity or whatever it may be, and sort of join together
Mhm.
to look at what is in the writings you have that are saying the exact same thing in the writings that I have.
Mhm.
And if the idea is no different, can we do something to merge
Or just
and thereby cooperate and thereby make it mainstream, make
Mhm.
the idea of the qualities that we would like to develop mainstream? That's
Okay.
uh,
So we've got to roll up our sleeves. You've given two great examples of children learning to be calm and be able to look into their own minds. That's
and
one truth,
like it.
and like it. And then the other
Yeah.
truth is unity of all religions. Yeah. Mm.
So,
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.
thank you. Ken.
Yes, thank you, Monica, for this wonderful presentation, and I'm of course here in the in the studio with us and with you. So the question is about Bhagwan. You said Nityananda?
Nityananda. Yes.
Nityananda. Yes, it seemed like he was describing in some way this state of consciousness that one might arrive at through this Jnana Yoga study of books and texts and meditation and
Mhm.
understanding and deepening that, and then having this experiential experience a change of a level of consciousness to what people are calling Turiya. Is that what he's
Yes.
talking about? Bhagwan
I
Nityananda?
think so. I'm not sure. I know that I think it was Turi. I remember hearing the Turi about the Turiya state in some meditation circles, and he was able to, at will, and of course in complete alignment with law, give a person the experience of what it was they were reading about, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
because he talks
Yeah.
about in your slides there the that this Yanni yogi is able to, or doesn't see any distinction between waking or dreaming or
Yes,
sushupti. So there's no change, there's no difference in this
right.
level of perception.
But doesn't that put you in the mind of what HPB said about the world of no form?
Yeah.
That's why I was attracted to it. That there is this state that is beyond the opposites, the pairs of opposites, that almost like the the self that watches all that we go through, and somehow what that silence would be, or that stillness would be, rather. So that, and then he says we're always in the dawn. So there's it's not inertia, I think, what he's talking about. It's actually a readiness that is just always sitting there. That I'm losing the, I don't know what I mean, but something like that.
It almost sounds like the transcendental vision of the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 11, where there's no difference between past and present and life and death. In that Turiya state, you can see all of the Mayavic
Yes,
manifestations all at once.
yes, and that moving beyond it just occurs to me that there's this journey beyond the pairs of opposites. Consciousness must also have levels and planes where it's more and less of that experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jonathan?
Um,
Do we
I
have any
think-
more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Jonathan is asking something.
Okay, my question has to do with the relationship of knowledge to the path of knowledge to that of reverence. I think it's twofold. Is it possible to walk the path of knowledge without reverence? And I'm also thinking about the, I guess you call them theosophical Mahatmas that we hear about,
Mm-hmm.
the Brotherhood of Adepts,
Yeah.
Sisterhood. If you read the Mahatma letters, you can just see that they have the greatest minds that you could ever come across. Or if you read the Secret Doctrine, it's the same thing. That this is the greatest minds have gone into this. And yet, when you read those Mahatma letters, you get the impression that those beings are probably the most reverent beings that you can come across. You know, they're not like, well, I don't have to worry about reverence.
Right, right.
Somehow, and I guess in relation to their teachers, in relation to nature itself. But I was wondering if you could speak about reverence and Jnana Yoga.
Well, I think reverence is a combination of humility and worship, actually,
Hmm.
of the deity in all. I think that that's part of it. And I think that the Mahatmas know better than the person who's just sold on themselves because they understand some of these ideas.
Mhm.
And that's a big gotcha getcha possibility, where it could take you off into the wrong down the wrong road. And so it would seem, first of all, the one thing that comes up is the great fortune, no matter, forget about the law of cause and effect and karma, but the great fortune to have this available to us. And I thought about what Raghavan Iyer was saying about the person who is ill in one manner or another. it can't even contain the idea of a master.
Mhm.
And we can forget about religion right now, whatever that is. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not altogether true, because the head of every religion can be tapped into. I'll put it that way. But it seems that the more you understand how remarkable all of this is, the less you may play this familiar game with your ego, which may have its appropriate outlet in some other situation. Look what I did, or I got this, or wow, I actually can understand this. But so it just has no place. It just has no place in this, because by the time you finish having that thought, as a matter of fact, to even have that kind of a thought, I think puts a big blanc on the mind, and the next one will be, dumb as a doornail. So it's real important, I think, to understand where they are is an amazing humility. That's the feeling I get about the elder brothers. Their humility is above and beyond, in the same way that they are above and beyond.
Hmm.
So that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Oh, did you unmute?
I think Jonathan maybe had something more to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
No, I was just thanking Monica for her answer.
Oh, okay.
No, I just wanted to say, I thought that was such an interesting question, Jonathan. And I say, sort of the founder of the modern Western intellectual tradition is Machiavelli. There's a book by Leo Strauss, who's sort of the godfather of the neocons, but it's a great book. It's Thoughts on Machiavelli, and it shows this. And you can see Machiavelli's writings. Machiavelli, beside being a philosopher, was also the greatest comedian, comedy writer of the Italian Renaissance. And comedy is nothing if not irreverent. There's no reverence in Machiavelli at all that I can think of. When you said that, I was thinking, and I think our intellectual traditions owe a lot to that sort of irreverent attitude. I think it sort of permeates a lot of our culture. I mean, I wouldn't say that maybe Dr. Judy's not an example of this. She certainly has great reverence, but I think a lot of the people in the academy have big egos and are just sort of irreverent about a lot of things. In any case, I don't think reverence is something that's inculcated in the modern academic and scientific traditions, and that really sets them apart from the Asian or the ancient traditions. That's just a response to that. Jonathan's observation.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Jim Tepper, hi.
Hi. Oh, yes. Thank you. Such a wonderful, wonderful talk, Monica. I'm just wondering the notion of when you were referring to humility in terms of reverence, and you referred to humility and then to worship. And it made me wonder in my own mind the question, could a reverence have to do with the awareness of the sacred? And by that, I mean that which is by its nature illuminating, elevating, unifying, and healing. And so a person's reverence is for the presence and awareness of the presence of that which is sacred, that which makes everything consecrate. And I'm thinking here too, in the ancient Hindu tradition, they considered the sacred to be the coming together of the cosmic and the human. And so they were masters at integrating in their culture the cosmic with the human, such that, for example, When a couple was betrothed, that was a sacred moment. And it represented the marriage of coming together of the male and the female to create something, which itself is a sacred act. And so they had a ceremony to observe the marriage. They had a ceremony after conception. They had a ceremony after the first movement of the baby in the womb. They had a ceremony when the child was born. They had a ceremony when the child was named. They had a ceremony when the child went to a teacher and held out a piece of wood that the teacher was to light, to help light up, to rekindle the divine flame in a human being. The awareness of the sacred is omnipresent. But they were always doing this bringing together of the transcendent with the immanent, the cosmic with the human. And therefore, we were always reminded of being part of something much larger. And therefore, we kind of, as a poet say, we could die and be reborn in the generous air. So there's something very beautiful about the sacred. We could understand why reverence is so critical to the awakening of the perception, the realization of that which is eternally a blessing and luminous.
My heart is full. Thank you so much, Jim Tepper. That's just gorgeous. And it sounds like something that took place at every stage of the child's life. I mean, that's sending a child out to the world who feels loved.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
And they used to do that as well.
beautiful.
And so reverence is actually, Machiavelli aside, because he was certainly a reverend, but he also missed a lot of things as well.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Desiree?
Thank you. Just going back to Jonathan's question and association with reverence, I'm wondering if we can win discretion without renunciation.
If we can win discretion
Through discretion.
without, did you say discretion?
Mm-hmm. True discretion.
Or discernment, same thing?
Discernment, yes.
Okay. Without
renunciation. Renunciation of acts, renunciation of results.
Interesting. I can't help but think that renunciation brings clarity. If somehow you're emotionally or mentally connected to results, that's going to be a block to what it is that's really before you. That's one thing, but also to your ability to be effective, I think. So I think that renunciation, real important. Although I think on the other side of the idea is renunciation that a person is ready for. To try to be someone who is not there, or rather in another place than they actually are. That can be harmful and then set you backwards on the path. So, but a wise teacher, a guru, a master can look directly into the soul of a person and say, I know exactly what this person needs to give up, needs to do, needs to work with to get to whatever that next level is. So that's a great thought that you bring up. Renunciation is active in bringing about results for us. on the path.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathan has one.
Nathan.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about this idea of well, it's all in the Buddhist scriptures about renunciation. And if you read them, I mean, I did for many years read them and think, is that for me? Well, no, yeah, it's basically the way. And take it or leave it, ready or not. And to gain cities for your future birth, which is really just the power to help, to heal, hopefully. But there are two paths, right? And like I just think about like in the Hindu stories, like the demon Ravana and how powerful he is and how he can't take a joke. Actually, he may be irreverent, but also, what it is that he in a certain way doesn't know himself, right? And that is and what is his nature? But is it separate from Rama, from Vishnu? It's like, I mean, I know that's what the whole path is about. I think that there are these, or I think that it's possible that people get, they do have a separative sense of self. I'm going back to Jonathan's question.
Yeah. Well,
you can have something. You can have power or meditation or something without reverence. But what good is it? Because you really don't even know yourself.
That's
And so that's the wonder of the great compassion of the teachers is even I mean, and I can't think of an example right now, but that seems to be the end of it all in this eternal, system that we have in all of these different religions about the devas and the asuras and everything else. It's like eventually the heart of the universe is compassionate, and if you don't have reverence, you basically just don't have anything. So and you will find you will be shown a way eventually. Won't come many lifetimes. Anyway, that's all.
Yes. Well, respect and gratitude are magnets. That's in those little metaphysical 3-day courses that was drummed into our heads. But it is a worthy truth to have in heart, and you cannot move to the next level if you don't have enough reverence to be able to understand the value of what you're being given at the level you already are. So you can't be grateful if you can't even see the worth of what's before you. So again, and that goes back to Desiree's idea of renunciation. So David Grossman.
Hi, Monica.
Hi, dear.
You spoke of, and all of us probably have reflected on that idea to act for and as the self. Could you say something about the idea, keeping that in mind, the idea of that we need to put our money where our mouth is? If that makes any sense to you.
I think I understand it. I mean, that's one of my favorite statements that Judge says, acting for and as the self of all. And then it makes me think of what he accomplished. It's just unbelievable. And then looking at that statement that he makes, it made me think, well, had he not been in that frame of mind, he would not have been able to accomplish all that he did. Mm-hmm. So there's something about going for the one for the sake of everybody that is a motor. But I think I lost track.
For and as. For and as, right.
For and as, acting for and as the self of all. So motivation, David, is everything. But also not hiding things from yourself is everything too. because you can think that you're gung ho in a certain way or down a certain path and a certain project to take on or whatever it may be in the world. But that's what the other thing that I saw. I can't remember where I saw it. I think it was Deepak Chopra that said, "Ask, why am I doing this? I know the surface thing of, my natural habituated go-to attitude, but why am I really doing this?"
Yeah,
So
right. I was
I
going to
don't
say,
know if
I was thinking along with this, we study and we have uplifting and lofty ideas, but we're kind of insulated in that sometimes. But when we have to act in the world, we're in a different state then, because then we're back in the duality in relation with others,
Mhm.
and in a sense, we have to declare ourselves.
Oh, I see.
And I think that can be very intense sometimes as we're growing and evolving, because it's to declare ourselves in a sense it becomes a state of transformation. Really, we can't go back after we've done that in a way.
Wow, that's a strong thought. I don't know right at this moment, all the things that I picked up and read for preparation is sort of a bit of a mush. But I remember reading somewhere about this idea of giving and the selflessness, and it basically what it did was allow for the idea of you have to have some kind of involvement in your project or whatever it may be to help you be that selfless person that you would like to be. So you can't totally negate yourself in worldly affairs. You need to have yourself, but Mr. Judge always brings it back. That's that same statement all over again. But this was on some spiritual website that was saying basically when you're starting out, you kind of may tend to leave yourself out of the equation. And nobody's asking you to do that. What you're being asked to do is be the collective. Be a part of the collective and know that and take refuge in that. But it's very easy without a lot of without being in the environment of these ideas to add psychological things to it. So we're not to leave ourselves out of the equation, but we're supposed to include ourselves acting as and for. So I don't know if that makes sense. Did you have something else, Nathan?
Oh, no.
Your hand is still up.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
What you said.
Miluka. Unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry I have internet trouble, so I didn't hear your whole talk. I'm sorry. But what
That's
I
okay.
see and I hear so far is, as always, very wonderful. You speak from your heart, and I like that. In this page that is open, I see some ideas that I always been, remembering that, and correct me if I am wrong, that HPV said that if it was 500 sincere theosophists in the world will not be, in other words, destroyed.
Wow.
Do you have any comments?
Well, no, but listen, there's power in numbers. So if and not only just that there's power in numbers, but if let's say 10 people are engrossed in theosophical ideas, in a certain setting where no one else is, do you think that's going to have impact?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to have strong, and they don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
It's that we inhabit an idea, hopefully, that is freeing, that can make us stop and say, wait a minute, what is this that I'm doing? So I can't help but think 500, that's serious change. Thank you for offering that, Maluka. That's amazing. I don't think I ever saw that anywhere.
Thank you for the answer, and happy Chinese New Year.
Oh yes,
James
the
today.
dragon.
Yeah, the wood dragon.
Yes, everybody roar, Maluka, roar, everybody. Very good. Do we have any more questions? Oh, forgive me, chat.
Chat. Yeah, in chat.
Oh yeah, Jeff said, "Happy Losar, everyone. Today is the beginning of the Lunar New Year festivities. Naga power. Excellent." Rose is asking, "What does the Lunar New Year mean?" Can somebody answer her question?
It's the year, the beginning of the year in the ancient Chinese calendar, and like the Jews, the Chinese began their year and their months with the new moon. So I think today is probably a new moon, and so today marks the beginning of the new year. So it's officially the year of the dragon now.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
They also said, it might be a superstition, that you should not wash your hair because then you will lose all your good luck.
That's a good excuse. I like that.
I know. Yeah, sure. Maybe tomorrow.
Works
That's
for me.
funny.
And also next Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's a Vietnamese Lunar New Year festival here in San Diego.
Very nice. Wow.
3 days.
I just want to say thank you so much. Good comments here. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Monica.
I think Rose has her hand up as well.
Oh, Rose? Wait, let me. Okay. Yes. Unmute, Rose. Where'd she go?
I think it might have been an accident. Should we put something in chat? I think her hand goes up by accident.
Her hand was up, but now she's disappeared. That can't be.
No, should we put something in chat?
Okay, let me
Rose
see.
wrote in chat.
Namaste, Rose. Thank you. Let me see.
Are there any more questions?
Oh, we're past time.
Okay.
I think we're going to close. We've gone past the time. But I just want to say how grateful I am for this Sangam. You guys are just remarkable. And I am steadily learning from you. And I am so grateful. Thank you so much.
We're learning from you too, Monica. Believe you me.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. So
Next week is Aquarius.
next week is the zodiac sign of Aquarius. Come back, everybody. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Love you. You too.
Thank you, Monica, everyone.
Happy Losar.
Thank you, Judy.
Happy Losar.
Thank you, Deb.
Try
See you
to
soon.
Troy.
Bye-bye.
Great reading at the beginning too, I must say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. and automatically
believe I said that.
The whole thing is the saving the
I
recording
came
at
out.
the end.
Did I do something wrong?
Somehow, must be some way. It's still. Well, that's my computer.
That's
Yeah,
yours.
you're the host.
Silly old bear. Oh.